And we have to, going back to where Roundy's was, their bond rating was not investment grade. Now all of a sudden we got Kroger, which is a very investment grade bond rating. So there's a big difference on the risk here.
Well, as Bruce pointed out, however, it's not so much the tenant as the actual real estate value that matters in terms of assessment.
But it goes
According
dark.
to the Supreme Court decision that you referenced. So
That's
I'm
true.
not sure the Roundy's versus the Kroger's.
It has
Has
more
that
impact on the
much to do.
IRR. I mean, the Kroger's, if the developer paid Kroger $550,000 to buy their credit. So, so that the IRR would go down and he could sell it for a much larger profit. So I'm not arguing that the project's not a great project. I'm only asking for information to review, which most municipalities do. It's not a unreasonable request. And I did not ask for Attorney Block to be the presenter. President Johnson did. And so if I don't feel I'm spending any money for his time. I actually
He had a lot of
prefer
prep time by the questions you had asked, whether he's here tonight or
I
not.
asked to review the documents. So that doesn't take much prep time. I didn't ask him to write a memo. I want to just review the documents. So I don't know how my request to review documents turned into I'm wasting taxpayers' money.
I also just want to say that there's a difference in terms of the subsidy that was given to this project. And the way Trustee Maher talked about it is it was a deal and we needed to get in and make a deal happen. There's a difference between becoming a partner and doing a deal and between there being an actual economic necessity and a real but-for justification for doing a project. And I think, if anything, the village has been more leaning, losing that distinction between where there is a true, the blight, we won't even get into blight and definition of what's blight, but I mean, that was the original intent of redevelopment. To me, it gets to the public purpose. Is that there's not a public purpose in doing a particular deal. That's not a government function. There's a public purpose in a more traditional redevelopment sense. So I question that when the developer is walking away with a significant profit, which in the December 19th materials staff said would materially exceed. I don't know exactly what that means, and that's the extent of the information we have on this. Then I have to really start questioning, was there a true but-for argument, or was the village just wanting to make a deal happen? That's not a but-for.
Can't do it legally if there's no but-for. So that's questioning everyone who's involved. There's a lot of people.
What we
taxing.
Well, we rely on the developer's performance in order to run the projection. I mean, that's the information that we received, that most municipalities run the projections based on the developer's performance. All we're asking, or I'm asking personally, is to look to make sure that performer was not inflated, which happens in the real estate market when you're applying for public money. And it's not an unreasonable request to want to verify what we were presented and what the data that we used in our projection, because it came from the private sector who's walking away with over $20 million in profit, in my estimation. So it's not a unreasonable assumption to say, let's just see if the data that he gave us was in the ballpark.
That's what Concord was, our outside
But
construction
when
contract.
they looked at the projections, but then you compare them to the actuals. It's not an uncommon practice in public financing of private real estate.
All I can say is whoever wants to go look at the numbers, they can do that.
Thank you. I
That's
appreciate it.
available. And frankly, my recommendation in terms of how the analysis the developer did when they went through and what they thought their returns were going to be, you should talk to Michael Weiss as well and determine what he thought he was going to make on this deal.
And I was hoping you
I have no interest in talking about it.
Well, I guess the problem I have with
would.
this whole statement that somehow this but-for test was a sham, is that you have to look at the facts and circumstances that were on the table at the time. and how he was evaluating what his likely returns would be and the risks that he saw in the transaction. And again, as Trustee Mauer said, looking backwards at a deal that changed fundamentally when a different credit came in at the time. I mean, it's as if you put a deal together with a local pharmacy and then a year later Walgreens comes in and takes over that pharmacy. The value of that property is going to change dramatically. And the owner of that property is going to get a windfall. But you don't see that coming.
When do you think Roundy's and Kroger's initiated discussions?
I have no
about
idea, but it's a
taking
publicly held company, and for them to divulge that, if the information is that somehow it was divulged to the developer, I mean, that, people go to jail for divulging.
I don't know, I'm just wondering when those conversations.
Well, I don't know. The deal was publicly announced in November of 2015. We worked with General Capital over a 2-year period, 2013, 2014, probably maybe even 2012, I don't know. They inked the deal December 2014, so it was 11 months between public announcement and the time we closed the deal.
I mean, all the secrets, and I don't mean to disrespect your work or your expertise at all, but I mean, and it's one thing that we don't have a clawback, and the developer, and as you stated in December, the developer wouldn't agree to it. We could have walked away from the deal at that point, but we didn't. The developer said no, so we kept going. But to not even have the information, to not even have the look back in the agreement, and then to not even be able to, I mean, just from a transparency perspective in terms of that the public, it was $5.5 million of public money that went into this deal, and we can't even know.
Well, you will know. I mean, the question is, if the deal had something contingent upon having that information today, we would have it.
What, I'm sorry.
If there was something in the agreement that
Right.
made knowing that number relevant, in other words, it drove some sort of relationship between the parties or kicked in an obligation, we would have that information. I can tell you, I've probably done 150 tax increment development agreements throughout this state. Very few of them ever require disclosure of a sale price. Or, I mean, they just don't. That's something that gets, it happens when you have a clawback and you have a sale, then you have a chance to look at it.
Because most sales are automatically disclosed because it's a sale of assets. and it has to
Maybe
be
most, but
recorded.
there's a lot of entity sales.
Well, I just feel as, I just feel as a taxpayer, I was involved in this and I can't, and with this partner, and I can't even, the partner in this deal has benefited, and we can't even know until December what the extent of that benefit was. So I just feel from a transparency point of view, it's, not great.
Okay, but I guess the only answer I have for you is we can't change that.
Mm-hmm.
And to add to that, we've got a great project that's paying for itself, and it's a good financial project for the village as it stands. So thank you. So next item. Next item is 9A1, budget and finance, consideration of expenditure recommendation for El Camino to Soccer.
All right, we pulled out the normal daily presentation of expenditures for the El Camino 2 facade grant. Martha Nancy, our finance director, has prepared a bunch of material for review. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Williamson to summarize his report.
Thank you. There's a lot of material that supplemented my report from the finance director dated February 6, 2017. I'd like to just focus on our review of the large grant program expenses that will be coming up for disbursement in the next several days or weeks, whatever the case may be. I start out my memo with a couple summaries, again, going back to some of the original project estimates. Then those were revised, the new project budget after some bidding was done and completed by the general contractor. We talked about a couple of items in the third paragraph and fourth paragraph that did not have some competitive bidding done in relation to what was typically done for contracted work. The first one was the general contractor itself. Since this was only a component portion of a broader project, this general contractor was a preferred vendor for the broader project, and the applicant agreed that it is certainly reasonable to review the cost being assigned for their general contract work and their carpentry labor costs for this component portion of the project by one of our consultants, which is Contour Group. That review did occur. Their memo was attached, and those costs were in line with common industry standards and practices. The applicant did agree to pay for that review. This was a little out of the typical situation, again, because it's not simply a facade, it's a broader project as well. The fourth paragraph talks about some of the signage. Once they got into the nuts and bolts of the signage that they were looking for, they found that there was really a situation where there was really only one supplier who was able to provide the type of sign they were looking for. So that was, again, more of a sole source issue. There's not multiple bids for that particular sign, although they had other bids for the monument sign. After construction was completed and throughout the process, there was multiple components of the facade, portions of this project identified. When the bids came in, those costs were further separated, in some cases on the bidding documents themselves, in some cases on the invoices themselves. Our bid director, as administrating agency for the facade program, reviewed all those costs with the applicant and made sure that those costs were in fact compliant with allowable expenditures under the facade grant program. Those materials were then forwarded to me. I did some additional review. I made sure we had all of the appropriate and customary supporting documentation of invoices, cross-checked the data that was indicated to be program eligible with actual invoices, made sure we had all the proof of payments and lien waivers in place, and that culminated in a recommendation and spreadsheet form for a grant reimbursement request, which is on page 5 of my memo. So that's what we're looking to put forth. Make sure that, again, another high-interest public project. Make sure that they're transparent in presenting all this information, and then seeking board approval to move ahead and issue the grant reimbursement before we have this discussion after the grant reimbursement's been administratively processed.
Yeah, the Finance and Budget Committee also discussed and went over these materials with Mr. Danielson, and the committee did make a recommendation 2-to-1 that we so approve the expenditures as requested.
How much?
$81,042. So there was a recommendation out of the committee. I guess you get a motion on the floor. I would make a motion upon thorough review by the bid director, village inspection staff, and the village finance director, the village board approves the disbursement of the large facade grant for the El Camino Partners, LLC, doing business as the Ruckus Project in the amount of $81,040.
Second.
Discussion? Yes?
I just want to clarify why, coming out of committee, I was not in favor of moving forward today on the grant reimbursement. I think the grant project is fantastic. I think that we've agreed to give this business owner this money, and I have no problem doing that. I just had a few questions that I wanted clarification on. Based on, it was confirmed that the reimbursement was compared with the standards and the eligible reimbursable items of a facade grant through the February 2015 program, because they got under it before we changed over the rules in December. And so under that program, there are still some similar requirements. One that I brought up was, we did reimburse them to the north side of the building. The program states that we only reimburse for facades that face the public street. So I just wanted to make sure that it was reviewed and that standard was known. There's a few other things that thank you to